We would like to call to order this regularly scheduled Brunswick City Commission meeting Wednesday, December 7th, 2022. If we can all stand for the invocation and pledge of allegiance. Father God, we thank you for this time we get to come together, and especially around times of holidays. We thank you for the Thanksgiving season. We thank you for being able to spend time around loved ones and give thanks for them. We ask that you remind us of those who have lesser so that we can pour into those lives and to be a stronger and better community. In your son, Jesus' name, we do pray. Amen.
Amen. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Before we move into the adoption of the agenda, I'll see if we have any addendums or retractions. If we don't, I will open it for a motion to adopt the regularly scheduled agenda meeting.
So moved.
Do I hear a second?
Second.
Hearing a first and a second, all those in favor show by the usual sign of aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, the same. Hearing none, the motion passes. We will now move on to public hearings on land use, a rezoning petition number 22-06. Director Hunter.
Thank you, Mayor and Commissioners. 1 second, let me share my screen here. All right. So this is rezoning petition 2206. It is an amendment to an existing plan development text and concept plan. 2307 Gloucester LLC, the owners, are petitioning to amend the current PDTN that was approved in 2021. If I draw your attention either in the report or onto the screen, the original PD that was submitted involved what was formerly the Days Inn Hotel parcel. That is most of what's outlined in blue, other than the little section in the corner that has the red kind of L. That was an adjacent existing property at 2328 Atlanta Avenue. The owners of 2307 Gloucester purchased that property recently, demolished the home that was at that location, and filed a combination plat to incorporate that into the larger parcel. And because of that, they would like to unify the zoning between the larger parcel and the new addition. 2307 Gloucester LLC was approved for rezoning to PDTN for this property on June 6, 2021. The PDTN text allows the development of 170 unit multifamily development with 1.3 parking spaces per unit. The concept plan for that development is here on the screen now. The building would front Gloucester with parking underneath on the first floor and then out onto the remaining parcel. The kind of blank center on the right-hand side was the Atlanta Avenue lot that was not originally incorporated into the PD. So having purchased this property, they are requesting amending the PD text and the concept plan to incorporate this area. It increases the development project from 2.458 acres to 2.699 acres, and increases potentially the number of provided parking spaces from 227 to 253. The draft revised concept plan and text amendments reflect incorporating that property into this parcel. So it provides new legal descriptions of the lots And there are no other changes to the conditions or restrictions of the existing PD. The staff recommendation on this is that the property at 2328 Atlanta Avenue is currently zoned highway commercial. Parking for a multifamily development is an allowed accessory use within that zoning classification. By incorporating the property into the PDTN for 2307 Gloucester Street, site redevelopment will be consistent and the same governing ordinances will be incorporated on both parcels. Staff recommended the approval of the amendment to the PDTN text and concept plan. This went to the Planning and Appeals Commission at their November 9th meeting. Discussion there involved the review of the previously approved site plan and PD text. There was a public hearing that was held there, and Ms. Stacy White, a resident on Lanier, spoke against the application. The Planning and Appeals Commission voted 3-1 to recommend approval of the staff recommendation. That concludes my staff report at this time. I'm happy to answer any questions that you may have. And after that, Mr. Mayor, you would open it up to a public hearing.
Thank you. Questions?
Yeah, I have a question. It's, to me, a little confusing in looking at the description of the site plan, which says the parking is on the first floor. Because of flood, you have to go up
Right.
12 feet. But then you've also got this whole skirting of parking around the perimeter of the
So-
project.
So, right. So essentially the first floor of the building, what would be the first floor, is proposed to be covered parking. The second, third, fourth floors above that would be the
apartments.
residences. So you'll have parking underneath, but then to meet as many of the parking requirements as possible, the rest of the remaining uncovered parking is kind of the gray area on the site plan. So basically, if you're looking at that, the C-shaped area is first floor covered parking, and the residences would be above that. The gray area, with the exception of the little red box down in the corner. That's done to show the new area. So
Okay.
this box outlined in
So that
red
was
would
Mr.
not be covered. That would be open parking like the rest of the lot.
So the dark shaded area is
Uncovered,
green space,
no, it's uncovered parking.
uncovered parking.
Yes.
So when you look at the entire site, everything is going to have an impervious surface.
There is some landscaping around the edges, and there are required tree breaks within that. They will have to meet our stormwater requirements. However, that was a lot that was previously 100% developed and covered. So they'll be working with Garrow on whatever the stormwater requirements will be for that site.
Okay, so thank you for putting that out. I want to make sure that, you know, everybody understands that there are requirements that have to be met. There are fees that have to be assessed and collected.
Right.
Based on the coverage. And that we certainly hope that as part of our overall city plan for stormwater management, what's required of this property in this site plan
Right.
falls within what needs to be done.
Right.
Okay,
And, you know, and as you know, as part of our stormwater ordinance, they will be charged a lot coverage fee based on the amount of impervious surface. You know, there's opportunities there for the developer to consider pervious surface over all of that area in gray if they so chose. They've also got options to collect stormwater from the roof, you know, to incorporate gray water systems, any of those number of things that would help limit the discharges into the stormwater system. Um, you know, I'm not the expert on those. Garrow really handles that much more than
Yeah.
I do, but in the calculating of things, you know, there will have to be some considerations for stormwater.
Because, I mean, there's no plan for a retention or detention pond. so-
Nothing shown. That
Yeah.
would be something that their engineers and our engineers are going to have to work through as the project develops.
Okay. And as far as any potential to incentivize having pervious surface,
So the incentive for pervious surface comes in basically credits
okay,
against the annual stormwater fee. So if they were to incorporate pervious surface into any of what's shown as
Yeah.
well, what at one time was calculated as 100% coverage, their annual fee is going to be reduced. I can't tell you what the calculation on that because that
Yeah.
gets into algebra and I'm not that's not my favorite topic.
yeah,
But yeah, there is an incentive there for them to increase the amount of pervious surface,
Okay.
impervious surface, sorry.
okay,
And
thank you.
there can be credits related to both impervious surface, the usage of impervious surface and any sort of catch basin, rainwater catch basin. It could be on the top of the building. I mean, they have the ability to apply for credits that would assist and because it's a commercial property with that much coverage, it's going to be based on those REUs that times pervious surface as opposed to just a singular charge. So they just based on the concept plan should be incentivized to seek out the credits.
Okay. And then one last question. Because of the purchase of Mr. Wright's property, has that helped provide other efficient ingress and egress of the property?
They're not proposing any change,
Okay,
but you know, obviously, it does give them more flexibility overall on the site. You know, it's shown as parking. That may be an area needed for some stormwater related things. You know, overall, it's going to, I think, reduce at a bare minimum, what it would do is reduce any stress on the surrounding area if that parking were to be full,
mhm,
where you might see people attempting to park on the street because there's not enough parking nearby, or there's some activity that's filled it up. Or, you know, everybody's gone to the Christmas parade and parked there or something like that. You know, it definitely gives them more flexibility in the site. And this is something they actually, at the beginning of this process, they were hoping to acquire this. This was actually something we talked about in the planning commission at the very beginning, that they might be coming back for this additional parcel.
and then is it Atlanta
Atlanta.
Drive?
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah. The east side of that is all commercial, correct?
Correct.
And the west side is all residential?
So
Or is it
from
residential?
Atlanta, yes, that's correct.
Okay.
Atlanta is the break point where you transition from commercial zoning to residential. And that whole stretch from, is that Macon?
Yes.
Yes, from on Gloucester, from Macon going west. That area is really kind of a
Transition,
mishmash
yeah.
of zoning that we'll be looking at soon. This is zoned highway commercial. The flash food, Friendly Express is zoned highway commercial. So it's already, multifamily was already an allowed use in this zone. It starts stepping down into office commercial and general commercial as you go further down
Towards
Gloucester.
Talmadge.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay,
But
thank you.
yeah, and so Macon and Atlanta are basically your break points for commercial development along 17 in Gloucester.
So ingress and egress is going to be off of Gloucester Street?
No, sir. Ingress and egress will be off
I'm
of,
just checking because I know we talked.
yes, we did talk about that.
And-
And that was early in the consideration in this process, we shared the potential changes that were under consideration for Gloucester Street and the intersection with
Macon Ave.
with Lanier and Macon,
Yeah,
and also advise them about the GDOT.
Changes.
That's GDOT territory, so that's GDOT permitting. And so, they pushed away and decided not to have access on to Gloucester and would have access from Macon and from Atlanta.
that's really good. Is there a rule of thumb about how many parking places you need for a project of this size? I want to be sure. We've got parking problems all over this town right now. Everywhere that you go, that you want to increase the use of is a parking problem.
Yeah, I
want to say this. This is one of my main concerns right now and right here is that we address this adequately. If you remember correctly, we escaped a joint water sewer building going there on that piece of property just because of the ingress, egress, and the stuff that we're discussing right here, right now. And I think that was the thing that had to be done there, is that did not need to be on that location, in my honest, frank, humble opinion. And now for the parking here, we have got to be just as sure that this parking is going to take care of this complex. It's got to take care of itself. You can't go over to Lanier Boulevard over there. You can't go to Howard Coffin Park. There's nowhere to park back in Urbana Park. This has got to be addressed, and we've got to be shown that.
and I think that's why the addition of the parcel was critical in the minds of the developer.
I get that. I really do, but I'm
Um,
still concerned with 170 units and being and wanting to be as sure as we can that we're addressing the needs of those folks. I mean, you're looking at, most folks have 2 cars in a household, I don't know how this thing's going to be split up. I really don't know, but 1.3 surely wasn't enough. How you going to park a third of a car,
Yeah, well, and that, that's a subject that there's a lot of ongoing debate in the planning world right now about parking minimums and parking maximums. And in a lot of areas right now, particularly a little bit more urban settings, which this kind of falls as a tweener, I'd say. It's sort of urban, but it's not completely. There's a whole philosophy about doing away with parking minimums, and that the parking becomes, what it is. I don't necessarily fully believe that, because I agree you do need, when you're planning your number of units, you've got to make certain that you're providing for those living there.
Whether they use them or not, that's something else. But we as a commission, in my opinion, have got to be sure that we request that they be adequate for that complex.
Yeah.
They be able to take care of it, and that you aren't parking out there on Goodyear Avenue. You aren't parking out there on Macon. You're not going on into Urbana Park, where it's not apartments, it's single family residential for most of it. There perhaps may be a duplex or 2 in there, but primarily it's single family there.
Yeah. And I do believe that definitely adding this parcel does help that equation. Their minimum being 1.3 per unit. They've pushed up basically to about 1.5. They do have a strong mix of studio and 1-bedroom apartments. And, I think they're gearing those toward young single professionals moving into the area, and not necessarily a family development where you're going to see multiple vehicles per unit. And honestly, that'll be something for them to enforce partly. I would, they may move toward a managed parking model where you've got assigned spaces based on what unit you're renting. That's one way to manage that so they control. Yeah, sorry, your unit only comes with one space and it's right here.
Yeah.
That's
Do you
something.
know what the mix is at this time?
Right now it's proposed.
It was in that chart, wasn't it?
Yeah, there's the chart here on their plan, see 28 studios and 89 one bedrooms. So that's obviously the roughly a little over 100 of the 170 units.
Well, just be sure that we don't overlook that.
Yes, sir.
It's
What is-
critical.
What is
My,
podium?
my question is, and this is Commissioner Harris. My question is, I'm glad they were able to acquire the additional parcel. But and my concern is parking. And my heightened concern is with all of the impervious surface is the flooding. And I don't see that flooding is being adequately addressed with the acquisition of this additional parcel, which is going to also be impervious surface. If I'm recalling correctly, this parcel had somewhat of a overrun little pond or something on the side of it, in front of it, somewhere in that area. And so now it's going to be covered with the impervious surface. And I'm concerned about that. And I need to see that there's going to be adequate drainage, runoff, whatever needs to be done, whatever you want to title it or call it, that there's going to be adequate inclusion to cover this matter. This is a flooding area already. And so we're adding more impervious surface to this area. And we're not addressing the drainage, the flooding problem in that area as it already stands. So that's my major concern at this point, not overlooking the parking matters or issues that are potentially going to be confronted with this development, but the flooding that's going to come with this, if we don't make sure that there is adequate provisions in here to address the potential flooding matters. And I won't even say potential, we know it's going to happen because that's what that area is prone for. And I don't see anything in this plan with the acquisition of this additional parking. Is this strictly designated for parking? Are they going to have a runoff ditch or drainage area in here somewhere? And also in the mindset of Commissioner Martin, green space. I don't see any of that stuff in here. And I see potential, more potential headaches with flooding. If we can take this off the screen, because I can't see in the courtroom anymore.
All righty. Let me.
So that's my concern. Is there someone there that's that can address that tonight, or is there someone that's going to come back before us to address that?
Yeah.
Could I ask a question too? I'm trying to think back to have some something retroactive. There was a motel called the Holiday Inn on that site. That was the first thing was there. When I was a kid, I used to grow corn on the field. And then a Holiday Inn comes there, and I used to hit home runs across that street too at one time. But that's neither here nor there, but I don't ever remember there being a flooding issue there. What I do remember though, that brings me a question to ask is there was a swimming pool right in the middle of the motel. And is there anything planned like that in this project? And again, the green space is where is it? You know, that's a good question.
Yeah.
We got Howard
Oh.
Hoffman Park right across the street.
But still, you're talking about a lot of acreage there, and people are gonna need to recreate. Is there gonna be a pavilion there for them? How are they gonna socialize? You know, how is that gonna happen? Somebody's got an answer for that here, I'm sure. No question.
Come on up, Mr. Bishop.
Thank you, John.
Thank you.
My name is Jim Bishop and I represent the owner developers. Y'all have approved what's going out there already. You've done it. We can go out there tomorrow and work with your chief planner here, who by the way is an excellent resource for us and for y'all, and just build whatever it is we've been approved to build. We don't have to do a thing. Nothing. We bought this piece of property because we thought it would enhance the value of the property, maybe provide some parking. We could use it, just pull out there like it is now in the dirt area and park on the dirt if we wanted to do it. My clients are not going to build a flooded parking lot. I just got to tell you, they're going to have a very nice development and they're going to spend whatever money it takes in order to make sure this represents a good development and a good project for them. Just that's the only reason it makes sense. But again, they bought this piece of property, became available, tried to buy it before we came before y'all before. It was not available, it became available. And they said, well, let's go ahead and spend some money and see if we can do this. It would enhance the development, the parking, the other potential aspects of the development of the property. So they bought it and they own it. They don't have to do this. Again, they could clear cut it and pull out there on the dirt and start parking. But I think this enhances the development. We will be working with John Hunter, who's the next. We got a representative of the owner here tonight with us. So, and I think you agree with everything I said, right? Good. These people, let me tell you, my clients are invested in downtown Brunswick, have spent and will be and continue to spend lots of money. The last thing they want to do is to do something that's untoward or doesn't represent the good taste and that they would hope to represent in connection with their developments, because they're here and they're going to continue to be here and continue to support. When I came downtown today, I don't get up, I just don't get downtown at night because my wife's driving me, by the way, my eyes are going bad. But it is beautiful. Downtown is just absolutely beautiful during this, wonderful time of year. And I'm just proud to be down here, proud to come through town, proud to go, as I think I told you. And I tell this often, I'm going on and on. I was here one time and it was, we were kind of late in the afternoon. And when I left here, it was sprinkling rain. You couldn't find a parking place anywhere going up, on either Newcastle or Gloucester. I mean, it was just amazing what's going on. So I'm happy to answer whatever questions you would like, but I can tell you, we'll be working with John Hunter to do, and if y'all would like to participate in that, you're welcome to come to the planning processes and discussions we have. But I think it'll be in good taste, and I think we will be proud, and you will be proud of what we've done, have done, and will do, because we're going to be back before you again and again. Any questions? Happy to answer them. And by the way,
Yeah,
thank
I
y'all for your
still got a
service.
question. I'm still concerned about the questions that I asked.
Yeah.
And they have not been answered.
Like, what is it, Commissioner?
Well, we're talking about parking, we're talking about amenities, we're talking about runoff, different things that we're talking
Well,
about. It just-
don't correct me here, but we've got to have a drainage problem that satisfies y'all. Am I right? Yeah, we can't just go out and build something. I mean, that's the reason you got these folks. You got engineers and you got planners.
We
And we got to
understand.
bind by all of that.
We got you. We got you.
Yeah.
covered. We really do. And understand that exactly what you're here for, but we still got a few questions and
I'm happy to answer all of them. I'm happy, but again, timing, anytime you do something like this, timing is pretty important. In the whole process, because we got lots to do more, that's all right. We're gonna be, you know. Sure. Yeah, Jonathan Robertson, we're blessed in this community to have Shoop Surveying, Roberts Engineering, Dan Busey does environment, we use them all, gold standard. And again, I would tell you, Johnny, we're not gonna be down here, we will not come back to you unless we have all of that done, and we will support nor fund the development that does not meet the standards that you all would be proud of.
I understand. Let me ask you another question I didn't ask before.
Yeah.
When are we gonna see a picture of what is going to be built there?
A rendering of some sort, we
Yeah.
can,
When are we gonna
but
see that?
you've already approved that.
We've done everything from concept that I know
Yeah,
of.
and I'm happy to get you one, but you've
Ev-
already approved it.
Everything from concept,
Yeah.
right, in good faith, in good faith.
I don't think this is meant to be a conversation of retraction of anything. We understand as a commission that this has been approved, but we are still responsible to our constituents and that community in that area to address these concerns, and flooding is a concern. We're not saying that anybody's trying to retract anything or take away from what you're the information you're providing to us, Mr. Bishop, but as the elected officials and the responsibility that we have to our constituents, these are questions that's being asked of us. And so we must pass this information along to the developer, just as we would with any developer, whether it's already been approved or it's not been approved. It's our responsibility fiscally to make sure that these potential problems are correctly addressed. So nobody's trying to say that there's anything that's not been approved or not being retracted. These are questions we're going to ask because we need to be able to answer them for those in that community and others that have these flooding concerns, and as fiscal responsible parties for what goes on within the city.
Yes, ma'am, and I appreciate that very much, and I encourage it and support it 100%. And I'm pledged to you tonight that I will make we do have a concept, right? It provided you first go around, but we'll have our people meet with whoever you would like to meet with at a moment that at a time that's convenient to y'all.
Okay.
And hopefully, and I know it's Christmas, but we're happy to meet with whoever and show you whatever we have. There's nothing hidden, people. I'm telling you, just not. And I respect the fact that y'all have a responsibility, and I support that 100%. But if you'll ask us, or ask maybe through John or somebody what you need in addition to what we have already submitted, I pledge to you, promise to you, we will get it to you as soon as we can. And if y'all want to have another meeting of some sort, I'd like to get this approved, all right, tonight. But if you want to have another meeting of some sort so we can show you again what we have done, happy to do it. Yeah, hey, excuse me, John.
I just want to clarify for the audience a little bit as well, our development process within the city. So all of these things that we're talking about, so traffic impacts, stormwater design, the architectural design and the landscaping design are all elements that are going to have to be presented as part of the development process to our design review team. As y'all know, this falls within the US 17 overlay district. So we've got those design standards for the development team to work through with us to address all of those issues. All of that has to be presented and approved in a number of different studies. So there'll be a specific stormwater study and report that they'll provide to Garrow that he'll review and verify their calculations with. And between their engineers and our engineering department, they'll verify their plan for how much stormwater is going to be created, how much is going to be captured, and how much the current system can absorb, and whether or not there need to be any improvements made to be able to handle all of that. As they go through that development and they start making decisions, final decisions about the materials choices and the design of the building. Under this US 17 design standards, they've got a standard that they've got to meet, and materials choices that are already laid out and approved that they will need to be submitting to the building department for review to make sure that they meet all the standards. Their landscaping will have to go through the same thing. There'll be some buffering between neighboring properties within those setback areas that'll need to be met. You know, if there's traffic impacts that we haven't anticipated yet, we'll have to look at those issues as well. All of that comes through our design process and is reviewed along with life safety once they get onto the design of the buildings to make sure that they're meeting current fire codes. All that is reviewed, and in this case will likely be reviewed multiple times. Having worked with this team a little bit before, they normally set up before they get into their full design and sit down with our design review team and talk about what issues we just see at the beginning of the process to make sure that they're covered. It'll go through planning, zoning, joint water and sewer, city engineering, public works, and the fire marshal, all to cross-check all of those items, in addition to making sure that they're not deviating from the concepts in the plan development. So we have ample opportunities where we will be seeing that come through our offices. I would imagine over probably an 18-month process or more. You know, if you'd like us to bring that to you when we get that and can walk you through that, we'll be happy to do that as well. That's part of what we're here for, so that y'all got the knowledge of the things that we're considering.
I was going to ask, I really wasn't through asking, but I was almost through. But what is the time frame for this right now as we're right here tonight? What kind of time frame are we looking at?
Johnny, I think our clients are ready to proceed through the we got a lot to do, like Mr. Hunter just
Listen, I'm
said.
aware of all this, and I think everybody else up
Yeah.
here is aware of
Yeah.
it, but what are we looking at in time from where we are? I
Well,
mean,
it-
I know that this
Yeah.
has got to go through the process. I'm
Yeah.
aware of that, but I hope that I've helped with a few ideas up here, as has the rest of the folks up. We're
We-
trying to help.
Yeah.
That's what we're trying to do.
Absolutely, and we're happy, you know, I understand your responsibility and I accept that, and I appreciate it more than you know.
I'm just a
But it's-
helper. That's all I am.
Not my money. I'm not spending, it's my client's money, but our mission is to get it approved so they can begin to spend a whole lot more money in the process in order to get it back and work through John and your professionals there in the city to move forward with the process. We own the property. We already bought the property. It's there. It's vacant. So it's not doing anything but, you know, paying taxes on, by the way, paying taxes on a piece of property that's vacant. And I'm sure that the city, when it gets through, the city is going to enjoy whatever the property taxes are on this piece of property. But as soon, I don't know. I don't know. I can't tell you about it. But you had a pretty good idea. What did you say, John, about 18 months or something like that? What do you think about that? Yeah, it'll be a while to get through the whole process, but if we need to get started in the beginning of next year would be a good time to do that.
Well, one other question, Jim, is that everybody knows that interest rates aren't going to go any lower for a long time. So is 18 months, is it gonna, has financing been secured for this thing? Or are you dependent on the market out there? Because it's not going to get any better, in my opinion, than what it is.
Who knows what the economy is going to do, Johnny? You know, if I had
Well, the interest rates are gonna go up.
Yeah,
I can tell
yeah.
you that.
Well, yeah. I haven't put the white light on my client to see if he can afford this, but
No,
I
I'm
think he
not
can, or
asking
we
for
wouldn't be doing it.
Listen, I'm trying to help
Yeah,
and I've got a
yeah.
little bit of experience and not trying to be arbitrary.
But again, you know, Brad Piazza has invested significantly in downtown Brunswick.
We know
Spent-
that, Jim.
Spent a
We
lot
know
of
it.
money, and this is his project. And I can tell you that, you know, he's a fine young man. He's got resources. You know, again, it's not my job, again, to put a white line on my client and said, can you afford this?
No.
If he could not afford it, this gentleman wouldn't be sitting here, and I don't think he'd be spending money with me. And
What
and
my
other
question
professionals.
could do, Jim, if I
Yeah.
could answer, is it
Yeah.
could cause to expedite the beginning of the process? I don't know that. Nobody knows that, but the owner, you're right. And that's why I asked the question. I know if I'm looking at lowering interest rates, I might procrastinate, but if they're going up, it might cause me to expedite the process a little bit. And that's what I want to know. I mean,
Well,
people asking us
I can't
questions.
tell you that, Johnny. You know, who knows what
I
what
asked
the
a
economy is
question
gonna do. If
and
I
that's-
had that, I'd be.
Yeah.
You know, my yacht somewhere down in the Caribbean, but it is, you know, again, you know, my client wishes to develop property. He is in the development business. He is already a developer in downtown Brunswick and wishes to continue with that. And you know, I would hope that maybe I would look favorably upon that.
Well, any way I can help, I'm here, and I hope that we can get it out of the
Thank you.
ground in 18 months.
But
is what
I'll
I'm-
tell you this, if any of
That's how
y'all
I
like
answer the question.
more information on this, I'm happy to sit down with y'all to get whoever we have to furnish you whatever you wish to have. And again, thank
Miss-
you very much for your service.
Thank you,
Right,
Mr.
later.
Bishop.
Thank you very much.
Director Hunter, I want to do the best I can to bring it back to the vote that we were taking tonight.
Right. That's
Yes,
what
the vote that we were taking tonight, and just so we split between the two, there was a vote that was taken in 2021 already.
Correct.
That vote has been approved by this commission.
That is correct.
That vote was taken when at least Kendra and I were not here.
Correct.
Okay, so the piece of property that we are voting on tonight, because all of the other areas outside of that little red area have been approved.
Correct.
You can already build the parking lots there.
Yes, sir.
Okay, solid. So we're talking about that one little square
Yes, sir.
that is contiguous to the
It is
property,
contiguous to the
would
property.
complete the property, would allow the developer to develop the full square of the property.
That's correct.
How much land is that?
It goes from 2.45 to 2.69 acres.
Acres.
So it increases from 2.45 to 2.69.
Okay,
Less than a quarter.
a little less than a quarter of an acre.
Quarter of an
That's
acre.
correct.
And so inside of that, that area is currently zoned for what?
That is currently zoned highway commercial.
So you could put parking
So you can
spaces.
put a parking lot on that property right now.
Anyway,
It
okay.
is just more beneficial
If we put it inside of this
if we
plat,
put it
so it's a
inside
single
that.
area.
Yes, sir.
Okay, so I don't have any more questions because that's the only thing we're voting on tonight. That being said, I don't have any issues, and I know we're gonna have public comment, so I want this comment to come. I want the comments to come as they're here. I don't have any issues locking in a contiguous piece of property for which we could already put a parking lot on to make this completely inhabitable for this development. And so I just wanted to do the best we could to recenter on the sole thing that we would be voting on tonight, knowing that there will be additional questions about whatever the development grows to be in the future. Commissioner Roll, any additional questions? Mayor Pro Tem, I can't see your hand, so I'm always asked any additional questions before we go to public comment.
No, I'm good.
Okay. Any additional comment from the public? Please.
It does need to be opened up as a public hearing. It's
Yes.
just-
We will now open it for public hearing. Good evening, good evening. Will you all be speaking as a group or one? Okay. No problem.
Can you talk?
If you
into
could,
the-
yeah, if you could identify by name and your address. The city clerk's not here right now, but if you could identify yourself by your name and your address.
Okay, Simona Holmes, 1819 Macon Avenue.
Thank you so much.
So I had the privilege of being at the Urbana Perry Park MPA meeting when the developers came last year and presented their proposal to us. And we had a lot of questions and of course, a lot of concerns about just the projection of this project and how it would impact our immediate community. Being on Macon Avenue and Gloucester, it's already congested. And just the impact that a 170 apartment building unit would have on that area is unimaginable to me. The traffic that comes down Macon Avenue is already kind of unbearable. I mean, it's just constant traffic. The damage to the roadway, which is already not in good shape, is going to be even more impact, especially during the construction part of this. I'm wondering where are these trucks going to, how are these trucks going to get to the construction site? Are they going to travel 17 to Gloucester to the construction site? Or will they be coming down Macon Avenue with all of that heavy equipment to build these apartments, which is going to further impact our roadway, which I heard you all talking earlier. I'm sorry I was a little late about the flooding. I mean, that's something that's been going on and we can talk about it every time there's a commissioner meeting. But I think that we as a neighborhood should have been more aware of this big project going up in our neighborhood.
Thank you so much.
I'm Vicky Green, and I'm 1601 Macon Avenue. I'm right down the street from Simona. So she's kind of been keeping me up on what's happening. There's a lot going on in my life right now, but had a chance to look at some of the information. From my understanding, it's 171 units, apartment units. Is that correct? Yeah. And from what I understand, it looks like maybe one parking space per unit. 1.5 parking space per unit. Just real concerns about where people are going to park, you know, because I know, having lived in apartments myself, me and my husband both have a car, you know, and then we have friends that may come to visit. And so just a lot of concern about that. Of course, Hello Goodbye is right across the street from where my mom in our house is. And I know they have a parking lot there and there's a lot of traffic because of them. People park, I mean, that place is packed every day and people are in and out. So I'm just curious about what is the plan in terms of all the parking? And that's my biggest concern, to be honest with you, because literally from my house, it's Mr. Wright's house. I guess that was the property that we're talking about tonight, that little square. It's literally across the street. And then right there is going to be the complex. And so anyway, so that I kind of concur with everything Ms. Simona Holmes said, and I wanted to add that, please.
Thank you so much.
I'm Michael Lehman. I live at 1626 Tillman. I have a very brief statement. I also have, at the end of this, a prepared statement from Rhonda Waller, who sort of frames all of this. She is recuperating from illness and unable to be with us tonight. But this development was planned, presented, and approved during the meeting strictures of COVID times. And our community, which has already been marginalized for about 5 decades, as I see it, had no real opportunity for input or involvement in any part of this process. Is anyone else speaking?
Good evening.
Good evening.
My name is Etta Brown. I'm a native of Brunswick. I can walk around and show you every street that floods. I live on the corner of Niles and Talmadge, is 1810 Niles Avenue. And you're talking about Atlanta Avenue is north of me, but my street starts at Atlanta Avenue. So when these people come out of their parking, they're gonna funnel down my street to turn on Talmadge to go to 17, straight shot, right out of their back door. My street needs paving now. The streets adjacent to me all need paving now. Again, like Ms. Holmes asked, where are these trucks gonna be? They gotta come in and bring this heavy equipment. Our streets are already overtaxed, just with the local traffic. I get traffic from the school already. My question is, what are we gonna do about that? We weren't asked about it, or how we felt about it, how it's gonna affect our property taxes, or just all of the parking. Where does the overflow go?
Thank you.
Good evening. I'm Victoria Mackey. I reside at 1804 Niles Avenue. And my concern is the group Port City met with us in June of 2021. They assured us that they would come back again and present to us what the property that they were developing on would be like. Our concern as residents are, we see the influx of traffic. When they closed L Street due to repaving, we saw the traffic in our neighborhood. From 17 Gloucester, wherever, we saw the traffic. There's children in our neighborhood. There's elderly people in our neighborhood. We're not only concerned about the neighborhood and the traffic, we're concerned about the flooding, the influx of the heavy trucks that will be coming in. You know, I'm concerned, just like Ms. Brown, what direction are they coming from? What route would they take? Our roads are in need of repair. Not only because they're putting that new development there, but they're in need of repair. But our concern now is, don't overlook what these residents are saying. Here are our complaints, here are our concerns. That's what we're here for them to listen to us, not just about the development. But as residents, there's Haversham, there's Urbana Park, there's Goodyear, and I'm sure we're not the only neighbors that are concerned. There's others that are concerned also. We have the housing project. There's a lot of children over there. I'm sure those parents are concerned too, because that would be traffic that would be coming through that area also. We're concerned. And that's all we ask, is that they listen to what we have to say.
Thank you.
I will now read the statement from Rhonda Waller regarding Port City Partners and the planned development of 2307 Gloucester Street. Dear Mayor Johnson, Mayor Pro Tem Harris, Commissioner Martin, Commissioner Kaysen, and Commissioner Roll, collectively the Brunswick City Commission. On June 22nd, 2021, representatives from Port City Partners attended the Urbana Perry Park NPA meeting. During that meeting, whose full recording can be found on the Urbana Perry Park Facebook page, Port City Partners did not provide a presentation about the planned development of 2307 Gloucester Street, but arrived and started their time on the agenda with, "What questions do you have?" At that time, they claimed to not have completed design plans, but promised to keep the NPA informed and to come back to discuss with the community. To discuss the design plans for the property, concerns raised about the potential bottleneck on Gloucester Street, and the traffic flow that would be diverted in the Urbana Perry Park community due to the entrance of the property being planned for Atlanta and Macon Avenues, and the plan for the 5-story apartment complex to make sure everyone in the community was informed and part of the process. It was their claim that they cared about the neighborhood and wanted to ensure plans for the development of the property was an open and transparent process. They promised to be available to answer questions about the project as they were further into the process. As of today, December 7th, 2022, Port City Partners has not kept that promise. As a resident of the Urbana Perry Park community, I'm very concerned about the promise of transparency and now the blatant disregard for for the concerns of our community by Port City Partners and the city of Brunswick. To date, there doesn't exist a 5-story structure in our community. The aesthetic of a structure that tall directly adjacent to the marsh and on probably the busiest corner of our community, Highway 17 and Gloucester Streets, raises many concerns on how this takes away from the aesthetic of our community, how traffic flow that undoubtedly will be diverted into our community, how parking for 170 units above and beyond what will be provided on the first floor of the building will be handled. If crosswalks will be incorporated for proposed residents to access the marsh area and Howard Coffin Park. It is my understanding that the property at 2307 Gloucester Street has been zoned for up to 5 floors and 170 units. I'd like Port City Partners to consider the impact of a development that large on our community and consider reducing the number of units and limit the number of floors to a total of 3, 1 floor for parking and 2 residential floors. I am requesting that Port City Partners uphold their commitment to the community from June 2021 and meet with Urbana Perry Park NPA during its January 2023 meeting. It is our request that they give a presentation and update on the design concept, provide a timeline for construction and completion, discuss efforts to ensure units are affordable, discuss and work toward an amenable solution to our concerns, and provide a report on efforts to minimize impact to the environment during and after construction. We would also like GDOT to conduct or provide a traffic flow study of the area and report on the impact of development that size would have for Howard Coffin Park, Lanier Boulevard, Macon Avenue, Atlanta Avenue, G Street, Glen Avenue, Gloucester Street, Goodyear Avenue, Wilson Avenue, Niles Avenue, and I will add Tillman Avenue. Undoubtedly, the future residents of 2307 Gloucester will be residents of the Urbana Perry Park and members of our NPA. Affordable and accessible housing is of great concern to our community, as is understanding that the comprehensive impact beyond increasing the tax base for the city, any development has on our neighborhood and the city of Brunswick as a whole. I look forward to your response to my request. Sincerely, Rhonda Waller, PhD.
Thank you.
Good evening, Commissioners. Good evening, Mayor. My name is Alice Keyes, and I am a resident of Windsor Park and a business neighbor in the Urbana Perry Park neighborhood. Our office is located at 7 Glen Avenue. Thank you for the opportunity to speak today. I want to begin by concurring with the concerns that you have heard from my fellow neighbors from the Urbana Perry Park neighborhood regarding the traffic concerns related to this rezoning petition. Port City Partners has, it's evident that Port City Partners has not adequately addressed the traffic concerns and the dangers that will be caused by adding an additional possible 300 cars to an area that's already congested. 100 Miles coordinated a safe routes to school survey several years ago. And one of the hot spots for dangerous crossings is the Gloucester Lanier intersection. Every week I see an accident in that area, and adding more cars will enhance the danger of that particular intersection. And adding 27 additional parking spaces demonstrates that the complex isn't being built for pedestrians or bikers. It's being built for only people with cars, with no accommodation for safety for those pedestrian and bike commuters. I also want to echo some of the concerns that Commissioner Martin and Commissioner Harris expressed regarding runoff and stormwater generated by paving over 2.6 acres of open space land. It's a fact that when you build an apartment complex and parking on 2.6 acres of land, you lose the natural infiltration and storm mitigation offered by that space. It's also a fact that y'all recognize clearly that the storm drains and the infrastructure in this area are already stressed and do not function correctly. Glenn County is experiencing the increasing occurrence in storm events, more regular high king tides, and more intense rain events. The system is overloaded as it is. Nearby roads are impassable even in mild rain events. And I know because we travel that direction to get to work. And when you've traveled down Talmadge Avenue by the McDonald's, you know that it's impassable. Again, the storm drains and mitigation opportunities are limited in this area. The elevation contour maps available on the Glenn County GIS webpage demonstrate that the Port City apartments are already at a higher elevation than their surrounding neighbors. I have copies of the contour maps here. As you can see from the contour maps, again, these are available on the GIS webpage. The dark orange or the light orange area where the Port City apartments are at 7 feet above mean sea level. But immediately adjacent to the east, west, and south, the properties are only at 6 feet above mean sea level. And the neighbor adjacent right next door to Port City apartments is at 5 feet above mean sea level. Additionally, most of the roads surrounding this property, including Gloucester, are only at 6 feet above mean sea level. Water flows to its lowest point, and with the already stressed storm drain system, the Port City apartments will cause major flooding problems for neighbors as well as motorists, especially if accommodations are not made for special stormwater management on this site. I would encourage you to require Port City partners to manage the stormwater generated from this 2.6 acres of property on their site. It is fully within the authority of this commission to do so, and that authority is recognized in the plan development text. In fact, section 3.3 of the PD text states clearly that sewer capacity and storm drainage will be carefully evaluated. Engineered plans will be reviewed and coordinated among the city engineer and the developer's engineer to meet or exceed the city's sewage and drainage standards. The addition of that 1/4 acre or 10,000 square feet of land gives Port City partners and the city the flexibility to consider on-site stormwater management and to incorporate an engineered solution to try and capture the stormwater that this apartment complex will generate so as to not flood out neighbors, so as to not further endanger motorists that are traveling down Gloucester. So in conclusion, I recommend that should the commission decide to approve the rezoning request, that you approve it with a condition. Approve it with the condition that the added property not be paved over, but to accommodate more vehicles, but that 1/4 acre, 10,000 square feet be incorporated in a plan to exceed the city's standards, drainage standards, and capture as much rainwater runoff as possible. You can also condition your approval on the expectation that Port City partners work collaboratively with the neighbors that they promised to do in June of 2021, the city and DOT to develop a more acceptable traffic and pedestrian safety plan that will not endanger residents, neighbors, motorists, and pedestrians. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
With what you just said about this commission approving that they ensure that there is no overflow, no storm water leave that property, that it should all be retained safely on their property and not pour into our community, which is already a flood zone. So I just concur. Thank you for bringing that up.
Any additional comments? Hearing none. Any additional comments from the commission? Any additional questions from the commission? I will, before we open it for motion, I will run through what I've tried to kind of pull away from the comments. I want to reiterate that the vote we are taking tonight doesn't have anything at all to do with about 95% of this development. 95% of this development can already happen. It doesn't need our approval. So we're only talking about that quarter-acre lot. However, I do think a lot of the issues that you all have brought up are important. And I want to make sure that I have those at least logged away in my head so that we can continue the conversation as we take a step towards development. The first thing I hear is construction traffic, what that construction traffic will look like in a smaller congested neighborhood, which I think is a fair point, which is something that I'm willing to take back myself. I'm sure the commission, as well as our directors, to have very honest conversations about when construction starts, when you all will start seeing any of that traffic, and to ensure that that traffic stays on mainline roads and does not come through you all's neighborhoods. The second thing I hear is road repair. Road repair that should have happened in previous years, and that shouldn't be happening solely because a development is coming. However, I do hear those issues as real issues, that if you are going to add additional traffic to roads that are already in disrepair, then we have to have a deep conversation about what it means to be repairing those roads in conjunction with this development and what that timeline looks like. The third one that I've heard is parking, for which I think in this ask of the commission, the developer is trying to mitigate that issue. So instead of having just 1.3, they are trying to accommodate for larger families, for all of that to be contained on their property. So overflow doesn't go to city property across the street to Howard Coffin or on any kind of private or open property. The fourth, which is really important, which is I will ensure that this happens, is to ensure that the MPA at the next available meeting, Port City comes out and has a conversation about what steps they are taking towards the completion of development. What I will say in that context is I know development is a fluid game, and they may be able to produce a rendering that may not be the final rendering. But what is important is that those lines of communication remain open, and it sounds like they haven't. So I will ensure that those are reopened. The 5 was prevailing crosswalks, or crosswalks that are visible as you're going more high pedestrian traffic areas, to ensure that there is greater crosswalk ability in that area. The last one, to be able to contain 100% of your stormwater on site, doesn't seem feasible to me, to just demand it, and especially to demand it for what is less than 5% of the complete property that we're talking about. However, continuing to have open conversations about floodwater mitigation and what areas they cannot turn fully into impervious surfaces, to help with that, I'm more than willing to facilitate that conversation. That being said, I've tried my best to encapsulate all the issues. I know there are a lot more out there. The most serious one is ensuring that we open the line of communication between the residents and the developer. With that, I will open it for a motion.
I'll make a motion to approve petition number 2206 from 2307 Gloucester Street.
Hearing a first, do I hear a second?
Second.
Hearing a first and a second, all those in favor show by the usual sign of aye. Aye.
I would have to say we need that condition on there.
Say that one more time. I'm sorry.
The condition that's been addressed. I understand that you capsulated most of that stuff in there, but to some aspect addressing the capturing of the water.
And the capturing of the water would be for this parcel, this individual parcel, because that is what is before us tonight.
And I hate to do this, but I do think there was a vote that was just completed. So I don't-
Okay.
I mean, I believe there was just a vote, correct? That there
That's
was
correct.
that passed, that carried.
That's correct.
Well, I heard me and Commissioner Case, and I didn't.
And you didn't hear me on that one.
Yeah,
No,
Commissioner, Mayor
no, we
Pro
didn't.
Tem and. Okay. I think what
I'm
I'm.
sorry, I think there's a motion in a second that.
No, that's fine. There was a motion and a second and a vote. That vote is 3-2. It sounds, or at least 3, and Commissioner Roll is against, and Mayor Pro Tem. I'm thinking what I'm hearing is that without any provisional connection to this smaller parcel, you would be voting no as well?
You're correct.
Yes, ma'am. So with that, there is a vote, there was a second, it's a 3-2 passage. The thing that I want to leave not open on the vote, but open in the communication is that number one tonight was a conversation about a parcel that is less than 5% of the property. There is a far greater discussion that has to be had about stormwater mitigation on this property, dealing with the entire parcel, as well as opening clear lines of communication between the developer and the community. That is something that my office, and I'm sure every single commissioner will ensure that we do with haste. So.
We
That
need
being
sure,
said-
that we need to, I'm sorry, Mr. Mayor. We need to make sure that, because I was at the NPA meeting when the developers came, and certain conversations were held, and it appears that the fulfillment of that didn't take place. So that's where my concern comes in at, is that there was not the fulfillment of further conversations as it said it would be at that NPA meeting. I don't think that anybody really has an intent of hindering development, and I certainly do not have intent, but I do have the intent of community and making sure that these things are in place as they should be in place, because with as that community's representative.
Yes, ma'am. And that'll be duly noted, and we will ensure as a commission that we go to work as they continue with this development, opening those lines of communication on all of the myriad of issues that they brought forward. So I want to say thank you to the MPA. Thank you all for coming out, and know that we will continue to be in touch, not only as a commission, but to ensure the developer is in touch as well. With that, we'll move on to number 3, which is appointments to the Planning and Appeals Commission.
Let me say one thing. We want to thank
As
Port
we leave,
City
let me say
also.
this, if you, I guess, channel your concern maybe through Mr. Hunter, we're happy to meet with, share information with, to the extent that we can gather it all together, and we'd be happy to do it. And at a time it's convenient to everybody. Because, my client's here for the long haul, and he wants to make sure that he's respectful of all the concerns of everybody with respect to the projects contemplated downtown. And I will leave you. Thank you very much for your service. Good night, Merry Christmas.
Thank you. Thank you,
Thank you to
Mr.
Port City.
We'll now move on to appointments, the Planning and Appeals Commission. One appointment, which is an alternate, City Clerk Atkinson. Do we have someone there in that space, or?
Yes, no, Mayor Johnson's, someone, term expired Mr. Day, and his unexpired term rather. And we have one candidate interested, Miss Elsa Bruce, in serving on that board as an alternate.
Yeah, it's an unexpired term, correct?
Correct.
For Charles Day?
Yes, Commissioner.
Wonderful. And is this a appointment that I solely make, or is this one that goes before the full commission?
Full commission.
Wonderful. Well, we have one person with their name in, and we will open it for a motion.
I'll make a motion to approve Alicia Bruce
Second.
to this position.
Hearing a first and a second, all those in favor show by the usual sign of aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, the same. Hearing none, the motion passes. We will now move on to items to be considered for approval. Consider approval of November 21st, 2022 regularly scheduled minutes.
So moved.
Hearing a first.
Second.
Hearing a first and a second, all those in favor show by the usual sign of aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, the same. Hearing none, the motion passes. We will now move on to consider approval of financial reports as of October 31st, 2022. Director Mills.
You have before you the October 31st financial. We are a third of the way through with the fiscal year ending 2023. You can see on the general fund, we have monthly revenues of $1 million over expenditures. And a good portion of that was we received the insurance premium credit to our bank account. It's not a check anymore. We get that once a year in the month of October. So that's why the month is so good. You'll see the year-to-date number for revenues is $10 million with my asterisk next to it. And you'll see down at the bottom, if you remember, I've mentioned this in the past, that we are required by government accounting standards to record as revenue the property taxes when they are billed. So we have a year-to-date number there of $5,119,000 for the property tax billing. And of that 5 million, as of October 31st, we had collected 1,831,000. Obviously, you'll see that collections numbers drop, increase dramatically when we present the November financials, since that's when the tax bills were due. So in any case, we show net revenue over expenditures of $5.1 million. Cash balance on hand in the general fund of approximately $9 million. On our loss distributions, we were up 7.29% for the month of October compared to the prior year. Which to date we were up 9.6%, which is actually $277,000 more in the current fiscal year to date than the prior year. Highlight Valorum is down 9.77% for the year to date. It's up in 7.96 for the month of October. But we're only talking about a decrease of $13,258. On the next page, you'll see the clause 6. If you look at that first column, it shows the amount that has been expended for SLOSS projects in total of $17 million. We have received reimbursements for some of those which were joint projects, and also some money we received from contributions for those projects of $4,432,000, which means that the city has expended the actual SLOSS funds of $12.6 million as of October 31st. We have cash on hand of a little over $3 million. You'll see in my little part right under the cash how much of a difference we had in collections between what was originally budgeted and what we collected. The aviation fuel tax and also the interest we've earned on all that money as it's been in the bank account, and also a settlement we received for Atlanta Gas Light and the construction company for $70,000, which gives us an overage of $559,000. Some of those funds have been allocated elsewhere, and you'll see at the bottom we have a total amount that's unallocated in the collections part of $213,000, but the grand total there of overage is $559,000. Plus 5 is on the next page, and I didn't change my date here. That cash prime sale should be as of October 31st. We had $1,370,000 in that fund. The Norwich Street Commons Fund, there's been no activity in that fund other than interest earned on the account. No expenditures paid out. We have cash of $339,000 in the Norwich Street Commons Fund. Roosevelt Harris Multipurpose Center Fund. You'll see we have revenues year to date $452,000. For basically that's cash inflows and that's my budget, excuse me. I'm sorry. Total inflows in Roosevelt Harris of $186,000, expenditures of $129,000. However, I will make a point of saying that those inflows, $125,000 of that money came from transfers in from the general fund. We were a little bit slow this fiscal year in receiving money from the CRC, but that money is starting to flow in now, so hopefully we'll see the transfer that we have moved out of the general fund slow down as we start collecting that money from CRC. ARPA fund is next. We have a cash balance at the 10/31. Let's see in the middle of that, $9,013,000. We have total funds that we received as of October 31st of $9.3 million. The two payments that we received, $4.6 million each, and then we earned $69,000 in interest income. The disbursements that have been made have been for back to business loans, or not loans, I'm sorry, back to business grants, and some money in the Wi-Fi upgrades of $267,000. You'll see at the bottom how much we have allocated to different projects. Those are allocations only. They can be changed, and as we go along and see if there are things that need more attention than others, that will be done. But our plan at the moment is to allocate those funds as they're shown the schedule. Next page is the sanitation fund. The sanitation fund and the stormwater utility fund are a little different from the property taxes, even though those are billed on the same account. Except the sanitation and stormwater utility funds are proprietary form funds, or enterprise funds, which are supposed to cover their own costs. So we record that income as we receive it. So we have year-to-date revenue, $808,000, expenditures, $155,000. But we will see if those collections, once again, will go up dramatically in November for the sanitation fund as we report all of the funds, the fees that are paid on property taxes. The cash on hand of $122,000. And also still money in the restricted account with the landfill of $195,000. Sanitation billing, you can see there for the month of October, $128,000 for the regular trash pickup, and then the illegal refuse and the street sweeping for a total of $140,000. Year to date, $554,000. Those numbers remain fairly each month. Stormwater utility, we have $671,000 inflows, outflows of $593,000 for a balance of $78,000. Our cash balance as of October 31st was $151,000. There was no money spent during the month of October for animal control, traffic control, or recreation department expenses. Last page is the Roosevelt Lawrence Center, and you can see the expenditures, which are basically for salaries and wages and benefits, approximately $8,000. The grand total for the month is $13,000. Year to date, we're at $44,000. Those expenditures, Stacey had it around $11,000, $12,000, $13,000 a month, depending on what kind of, if anything, extra comes in. If you have any questions, I will be glad to answer.
Any questions?
No questions here.
We'll open it for a motion.
I'll make a motion that we approve the financial report as presented.
Here in the first, here a second. Here in the first and the second, all those in favor show by the usual sign of aye. Aye. All those opposed, the same. Hearing none, the motion passes. Thank you, Director Mills. We will now move on to consider approval of 6 alcohol licenses. Officer Brown.
Gave you guys the list of the 6 stores. They're all with no violations.
Okay.
So it's just waiting for your consider
Perfect.
approval.
Anybody questions, comments? Hearing none, we'll open it for a motion.
I'll make a motion to approve the 6 alcohol license renewals.
Hearing the first.
Second.
Hearing the first and the second, all those in favor show by the usual sign of aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, the same. Hearing none, the motion passes. Thank you, officer. We now consider approval of memorandum of understanding between the city of Brunswick and the Golden Isles Development Authority for distribution of community group investment fund grants. Mr. Antimo, good to see you.
Mayor, Commissioners, good evening.
Good
So what we have before us is a memorandum of understanding between the city of Brunswick and the Golden Isles Development Authority for the distribution of funds for the community property, commercial property enhancement grant. Just to back up a little bit and give you guys a refresher, that grant was proposed to the commission board, I want to say October 5th. That was the grant that was presented by Matthew Hill of the DDA. That grant not only affects the DDA, but it's a grant that's gonna benefit the entire city. So that's what this memorandum is about. Just moving further into the document. Section 5 on page 2, just want to give attention to the second sentence in item number 4. It states that if approved by the Finance Committee, the city's Economic Development Department will present the JITA with applications that are approved for funding. The next page, section 5, it states that the city's Economic Development Department will submit a payment request for the amount approved. The payment will then be made to JITA. The next section talks about the responsibilities of the agency. It states that upon receiving a recommendation of approved applicants, JITA will prepare the payment for the recipient. Upon receiving the funds from the city of Brunswick, JITA will submit the payment to the recipient. And thirdly, JITA will provide the evidence of the city's economic development department that the payment was submitted to the recipient within 30 days of the recipient receiving that payment. And just a bit more language that I want to highlight in this document. Section 9 talks about compliance and monitoring. The document states that as this MOU was funded by the city of Brunswick, the parties acknowledge that they will be subject to scheduled and unscheduled monitoring reviews to ensure compliance with all applicable requirements. That's all I wanted to make mention of into the document. If there's any questions that you have for me, I'm glad to answer them.
Okay. So this grant would be for any business that's located within the city limits anywhere?
That's correct.
Okay, and I'm only asking these questions for people that are listening that probably don't. And then what are maybe a few projects that they can use the grant for? Like, is it?
It's intended mostly for commercial properties.
Okay.
We are considering it for industrial properties as well. But just to be clear, it's not for like, people's houses or residences.
Right.
This is just for commercial properties.
Okay.
Okay. My question is, just piggybacking on one question that Commissioner Rogers asked, strictly city.
Yes, I mean, the city and including the DDA district. This is not anything to do with the county. We're
Okay.
we're partnering with them to distribute the funds to the applicants.
Okay, right, so strictly city. So now my next question is, what's the benefit of JITA distributing the awarded funds to the applicants? What's the benefit of this MOU with JITA?
There isn't any particular benefit, I believe. To my understanding, we have to, the city would have to partner with JITA to distribute these funds. I think that's a matter of legality, and I'm sure Brian Corey can elaborate more on that if he needs to.
That's right.
Yeah, that's what I'm trying to find out. Why are we even considering this MOU?
Because the similar grants like this could have gone through the DDA. This grant, as you stated, is specifically addressing businesses outside the Downtown Development Authority's district. So to utilize a development authority with jurisdiction outside the DDAs, it would be, we only really had one to choose from, and that would be the Golden Isles Development Agency, or Development Authority, I'm sorry.
Okay. All right, so they're the only agency that we could use. That's what you're saying.
Correct, because the DDA wouldn't be able to distribute the grant funds to businesses outside of their jurisdiction. So to ensure that the funds could be distributed within the DDA and within the other areas of the city that are not within DDA jurisdiction, we discussed it and elected to utilize the Golden Isles Development Authority.
Okay, I'm just making sure that Golden Isles Development Authority is only other agency that we could have used. That's my question.
Yeah.
Yes, I think that's correct. And I think the URA's plan would have limited it to the areas in which it's been granted authority, and the DDA is limited obviously by its jurisdictional boundaries. So yes, I believe that is correct.
Okay, that's my question. That's what I needed to know.
Okay.
So it's not a trick question.
No, I understand.
It's just making sure that everybody, that I have that understanding, as well as anybody else that's listening and may have that question. Why is it being done with Golden Isles instead of, some other in-house agency that may be quasi-city or something? Okay, and so the compliance portion, he addressed section 9 about compliance. But my thing is that's stated in there about compliance. It's kind of ambiguous to me. I know that your name is the contact person. And so what mechanisms do we actually have in-house to make sure that this compliance is done timely and adequately?
At this point, I'm not aware of how this will be monitored when it comes to the review process. Well, let me back up and say, the review process is something that we do have. We know how we're going to review it, but as far as the compliance and monitoring, that's something that we can have further conversation about. Brian, if you have anything to add on that.
I mean, I think that, in terms of what I would see as compliance under this agreement, it would be whether or not the expenses that they're seeking to utilize the funds for are eligible. I think that's addressed previously in the MOU as ADA compliance, safety, those types of things at a business. And then in addition, there is a component there that the Golden Isles Development Authority is supposed to be reporting back showing proof of payment, that the payment has been made to the applicant. So those types of compliance is what I would expect city to have to complete. So to be clear, to ensure that the funds are used for their specified purpose and that the funds have been paid out.
And the reporting back to us as a finance committee, as well as the commission of compliance.
Well,
how is that going to be done?
In the review process, the application will be presented to the finance committee, and just whatever the applicant intends to do, that'll be relayed to the finance committee. So they'll be debriefed on everything that's going on with the process.
Right. I understand that part.
You're asking after the fact.
Right.
We can add a component to the MOU that certainly could bring it back. If there's some particular time frame that might be appropriate to bring it back before the finance committee for a status report or update on how these, how things have gone.
Yeah, I mean, I would think we want to be abreast of how the monies are being used, how it's benefiting the businesses within our jurisdiction. How is it providing them with expanded opportunities, longevity, that type of stuff. Not that we're just issuing out monies, but how is it actually being effective and efficient? So that's what I would think that we would want to know as a commission. How are we building up these businesses from these funds and keeping track of that?
I think that's a great idea. I'm not sure if that would necessarily be added to this document. This document is just talking about, partnering with the county or partnering with JITA to, distribute the funds to the applicants. But those points you made were great. We definitely, need to, keep track and, monitor what's happening with these funds.
Okay.
Yeah, and
That's,
are you finished?
yes, ma'am, I'm finished.
Just a question, the flow of money and the timeliness of expenses that a business has. Let's just say, for instance, somebody wants to add a ADA compliant bathroom to their business. They've got to get cost estimates for the full project, submit that with the application, get approval for it, start the project, take receipts or invoices
Right.
from the contractor. And does the business have to go ahead and pay them? Do they submit them? How does that flow? And is it all fitting within net payment, net 30-day payment?
I think it depends on by case basis.
Yeah.
Of course, the applicant will have to have funds. This is a matching grant. So
Yeah.
whatever they have on hand to, spend on their project, they're going to go ahead and spend on that. So I think, it's usually just case by case, but
Okay.
that's the matter.
You done, Julie?
Yeah.
This is a grant. There is no repayment, right?
That's correct.
It's money is,
Allocated.
it's a gift.
Correct. It's a matching grant. So they have to have the same amount of funds that they're seeking.
Okay. I got one question here on page 2, item 4. It looks to me like we're saying that the applicants let me just read the thing here, if I may, please. Upon completion of the final review and approval by the city manager's office, the application will be presented before the city finance committee to further review and voted upon approval. If approved, the finance committee, the city's economic development department will present Golden Isles Development Authority with applications that are approved for funding. Does that mean that this does not come back to the city commission for approval?
That's correct.
Who has that spending authority in the city of Brunswick that does not have to be the city manager's approval is only $25,000, of which that is the threshold. But do you really want to do that? You don't want to know who's getting this money?
That's a good question, Johnny.
I'm sorry, but I think that we need a little bit more control on this thing.
Can I say that this is Mayor Pro Tem? I read that section too. And my understanding, and I may have misinterpreted what I read, was that the finance committee would review it and recommend it further to the commission, because finance committee is a recommending committee. We recommend that the item be moved forward to the commission for the commission's approval.
I mean, it's up to the city commission, but the only person that's got the authority to do this is the city manager. And her approval is at $25,000. And by the way, that's supposed to be for an emergency, is what that's supposed to be for. This is not an emergency.
I understand this isn't an emergency.
And let me say this. It's supposed to come back before the city commission when she uses that $25,000 threshold or that emergency situation. So I recommend not doing this the way it is, but it coming back to the commission. That's my recommendation.
That's what I was lending to your concern, Johnny.
I would like to add, this is something that came before you all on October 5th, and the review process and the whole overflow and how it would go was included in that presentation that Matthew Hill gave to you all, and you all approved it. I'm not sure if there's any way that you can go back and retract that, or, you know, we can have a further conversation with the city manager's office, but what we're looking at has already been approved, and this is just a memorandum of understanding to partner with the Golden Isles Development Authority to push the funds through.
So just so I'm clear, we've already approved the grant structure, how they apply, how it's approved, all of
Correct.
that kind of stuff. We are just approving who is the dispersing organization.
That's correct.
So what organization disperses the funds? And I'm not trying to push it either way. I'm just trying to make sure that that's what we're locked in on. And then the other piece of that would be if we wanted there to be any changes to the actual program, that's almost a different vote.
Correct. That's
okay.
not on the table.
This is just the MOU to disperse the funds. So if we wanted any actual change to the programmatic piece of it, we would have to go back and make some other change.
I mean, I think you know, as the commission, if you requested that it come before you before it be approved, reported or recommended or however you want to call it to GITA, you know, it's
So just before it goes to GITA, we can say it here before it goes to GITA.
yeah, but it's in the discretion of the commission. You know, that's just your discretion whether or not you want to do that or not.
So is our downtown development authority taken out of the picture altogether because of just the jurisdictional?
On this
Okay.
particular MOU, they are not a
Yeah.
part of this MOU.
Okay.
Any additional questions or concerns, or how we want to make sure we get this right before we motion it? As the city attorney has said, we can have it come back to us before it's moved to GITA for their disbursement. So we can put that in here. We can put that in here now. Does that?
I think it should be here because nobody has these kind of spending limits, you know, and there are parameters if you do spend this money. So we've aborted that part of what we should be doing. So I think we need to correct it.
Yes, sir. So what I'm hearing is that the motion that we would put forward is consider approval of memorandum of understanding between the city of Brunswick and the Golden Isles Development Authority for distribution of community group investment fund grants pending.
Subject to city attorney revisions.
Subject to
City attorney
revisions. Okay, I can't make a motion, but that's the motion.
I'll
I
make
made.
that motion.
Okay, we got a first. Do we hear a second?
Second.
Hearing a first and a second, all those in favor show by the usual sign of aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, the same. Hearing none, the motion passes. Thank you, Mr. Antimo. And we will start to work with,
Yeah, making that modification.
okay, they will work on that modification right now. We will move, well, Brian, you're actually up next. We'll move on to city attorney's items. Consider approval of payment of the excess tax proceeds from the tax sale of parcel number 01-04148 in the amount of $29,196.92.
One moment to bring. All right. Good evening, Mayor and Commissioners. What you have before you is a request from the Glenn County Tax Commissioner's Office for excess tax sale proceeds for the property. It's parcel number 01-04148, commonly known 2400 Reynolds Street School. The city, as you guys are also familiar with, took over the collection of its own taxes in 2018. As a part of that, the city started conducting its own tax sales. This property was delinquent in city taxes for the years 2018 and 2019. The city completed a tax sale on the property on January 5th, 2021, recuperated the cost of the delinquent taxes to the city owed, the cost of the tax sale, you know, the implementation of the tax sale and any costs owed to the city related to that. At the actual tax sale, it generated a bid price of, I believe it was $33,000. Which resulted in an overage of $29,196.92. Those overage funds are held by the city until there's a claimant that brings forth a claim over those funds and that they provide proof. As you can see in the backup documentation provided, whether it be a title opinion letter from an attorney and an affidavit executed by the claimant stating that they have a rightful claim over the funds. The most common claimant would be the record owner at the time of the tax sale for this particular property. It was an LLC that had been administratively dissolved since I think 2014. The second, the hierarchy of the claimant, the liens that would be claimed would then go to tax liens and superior in nature to whatever remaining liens might fall below that, whether it be mortgage holder, material min lien, those types of things. This property is unique in that it was not only delinquent for the city, but it had been delinquent for the county for many years dating all the way back to 2013. For the tax years 2013 to 2016, the previous Glenn County Tax Commissioner filed 5-phase on the property records, securing a superior tax lien over the property for the taxes owed for 13, 14, 15, and 16. There was also taxes not paid to the county for 17 through 2020. So as a result of that superior tax lien, the Glenn County Tax Commissioner's Office submitted an excess overage fund claim for the funds claimed, the funds generated in the amount of $29,129.92. That is the entirety of the claimed, that's the entirety of the overage funds. They make that claim because the amount of delinquent taxes owed, including penalties and interest owed to the county, is in excess of that $29,000. But it is also important to note that because the county tax commissioner's office was collecting city taxes for those years that we've discussed, especially 2013 through 2016 and 2017, that the payment of these excess proceeds to the tax commissioner's office to fulfill the liens related to 2013 through 2016 and 2017 would also generate significant repayment of delinquent city taxes, as well as school board, state, and everyone that would be collected there under. So when you look at this overage, these are approximated values. I do not do all the numbers that the tax commissioner could do, but you have to understand that the approval of this overage to the tax commissioner's office, who holds a valid and superior tax lien on the property, also will generate payments to delinquent taxes owed to the city of Brunswick and to the Board of Education. So it's a little bit of a win-win-win here. It's just unique in nature. There are instances where the city may have delinquent taxes in a county tax sale that generates an overage. The city could equally make a claim over those same overage funds. So this is a little bit unique in nature. It was brought before the Finance Committee at the last Finance Committee meeting, where they did recommend approval. It is now before you, where I would bring the same recommendation I brought to the Finance Committee to approve the claim and allow the Finance Committee to disperse the overage funds to the Glenn County Tax Commissioner's Office.
This is all pretty standard.
Yeah, I mean, it seems complex, but it actually makes a lot of sense.
Any questions? Hearing none, we'll open it for a motion.
I'll make a motion that we approve payment of the excise tax proceeds from the tax sale of parcel number 01-04148 in the amount of $29,196.92.
Hearing the first, do I hear a second? Hearing the first and the second, all those in favor show by the usual sign of aye. Aye. All those opposed, the same. Hearing none, the motion passes. We'll now move on to number 9. Consider approval to the First Amendment to the 2012 local option sales tax agreement between the city of Brunswick and Glenn County.
That's correct. If you recall, earlier this year, the city and county entered into negotiations for what will become the 2023 lost agreement. The agreement was passed. The certificates were filed with the Department of Community Affairs, and the city and county will begin operating under that agreement January 1, 2023. As a component to that agreement, the city will be receiving traffic control maintenance and animal control. Won't rehash all of that, but there was a component left. There was a footnote in that 2023 lost agreement that the city and county would come together and execute a separate MOU that would amend the 2012 lost agreement to continue to provide recreational services for a certain period of time that would allow the city to adopt and implement its own recreation program. We do need to get this done before the end of the year. I've worked with the county attorney's office. It is a first amendment to the lost agreement. It's probably going to be the only amendment to that 2012 lost agreement, but it essentially provides that the recreational services will operate in the same manner as having been operated for the past 10 years up until September 4th, 2023. So that would give, essentially 8 months of 2023 for the city to begin the programming, operations, and implementation of our recreation program. And I believe, if I'm not mistaken, the county, if this is approved tonight, the county would be taking this up at their meeting on the 15th. I think they're off a week from us this month.
Any questions?
I have a question I think is hopefully pretty easy to answer.
I hope.
Having sat on the commission now for 11 years and having gone through the first loss negotiation,
And the second.
yeah, and the second, thank you.
Completed.
The first was a whole new MOU.
That's right.
So are we amending that, even though it's sunsetted, because it mirrors so closely what's moving forward, with the exception of no longer involving recreation? Is that why it's amended?
This is an amendment to the 2012. That's what you're
Yes.
correct. So it is an amendment to the 2012 because, in concept, if the city and county had just agreed to the exact same, you could have done a renewal or a first amendment, essentially adopting and incorporating by reference the entirety of the old one. Since we made changes, we utilized the body of the 2012 agreement and created a 2023 lost agreement. So that's on its separate and own course that will be, started and charted on January 1st, 2023. But in that footnote, we noted that we would amend 2012s to address just Parks and Rec, because it just seemed easier as opposed to creating another MOU outside of the two that are, one's currently active, one will be active, to just amend the first one just for that additional 8 months and 4 days, and then it would sunset. So that would represent, because of this amendment, 2012's lost agreement would end on September 4th, 2023.
Okay, which is when the city will fully take over the.
Right, and only for the purpose of allowing recreation to go.
Okay.
All other components that are included in that 2012 agreement will cease to operate on January 1, and the 2023 agreement will come into effect.
Okay, thank you for explaining that.
That's just to cover that gap period.
That's it. That's all this is.
Any additional questions? Hearing none, we'll entertain a motion.
I'll make a motion that we approve the, let me get the wording right. The First Amendment to the 2012 local option sales tax agreement between the city of Brunswick and Glenn County as presented.
Hearing a first, do I hear a second?
Second.
Hearing a first and a second, all those in favor show by the usual sign of aye. Aye. All those opposed, the same. Hearing none, the motion passes. Do we have any executives? We will open it for a motion to adjourn.
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
Hearing a first and a second, all those in favor show by the usual sign of aye. Aye. All those opposed, the same. Hearing none, we are adjourned.
Thank you, sweetly.
Thank you.